Hello and welcome back. Got another Tamnavulin to review today. So I reviewed the Tamnavulin double cask, which is kind of the standard, available everywhere, kind of flagship normal Tamnavulin. And I think Tamnavulin is a distillery that a lot of people love to hate. And you can see why, but I like it. I think that especially when you consider the price point that Tamnavulin sells for, it's sweet and playful, it's a little bit fruity, a little bit malty, and it's cheap. I think that for £20, Tamnavulin double cask is absolutely fine. I think that if you're in the early days of your Scotch journey and you're looking for decent, affordable bottles, then I think that the Tamnavulin double cask is a great one to try. If you've tried a few whiskies and you're looking for a cheap introduction into Speyside style whiskies, then again, it's a great one to try. And some people are going to disagree with me here, but I think if you're looking for a cheap, affordable, everyday dram, then again, I think it ticks that box really well. If you'd like to hear some other reviews on Tamnavulin and the range of cask finishes and the whiskies that they do, I would recommend having a look at Ben's channel at Whisky Geek. He's done several videos of several different expressions, so I'll link some of his videos in the description below, and I'll also link some other videos of some Tamnavulin reviews for you. So yeah, Tamnavulin, or the Mill on the Hill, is what the name means. It is a budget-orientated supermarket staple here in the UK. It's cheap, it's affordable, the presentation's not great, but it offers something for the low price they ask. And I'm sure a lot of you all know that Tamnavulin is one of the White & Mackay distilleries, so it's owned by the same company that makes the White & Mackay blend, and Jura, Fettercairn and Dalmore. And I've always thought, if I had the chance to take over and really turn things around at one of the White & Mackay distilleries, I think Tamnavulin would probably be my choice. Honestly, and this is just my opinion, I think Dalmore's not really a distillery that interests me that much. Jura is probably the one you'd pick if you wanted a challenge. I think that Jura are making progress with their 10-year-old release. Is definitely better than some of those no-age statement releases that it's replaced. But I think that Tamnavulin, it shows some really good character and a really pleasant, easygoing style of whiskey that really wouldn't take much to make it shine. I think that if you took over Tamnavulin, bumped up the ABV, kept an eye on the quality of your casks, and it could be something really great. Obviously, you're not going to get any of that at the current price point that this stuff sells for, because it sells for around £20 to £22 when it's on offer, and it's on offer most of the time. But I do think that with a lot of Tamnavulin releases, especially the double cask, it's really only that presentation that's holding it back. Sadly, a good presentation with Tamnavulin is not something that we get. There are no craft presentation options available from Tamnavulin themselves, at least not here in the UK. There's a few slightly better versions of, they tend to be older age statement releases available on the Taiwanese market, but not really anything available to us here in the UK. And worse than that, Tamnavulin is one of those whiskies that you very rarely see as an independent bottling. So if you do want a good presentation version of a Tamnavulin, you're probably not going to get it. So anyway, here we are with this Tamnavulin supermarket staple, it's the red wine cask edition. So this stuff is a Tamnavulin, and it's matured in American oak casks, so it's most likely going to be bourbon, probably quite a few refill bourbon casks in there, and it's finished in Cabernet Sauvignon red wine casks. And as always, I think the double cask, they said it is batch 248 or something, and they always have done for years. This one is batch number 001243, and they all are. So they're trying to make you think that this is like a small batch, handcrafted product, but it's not. But for the price, we knew that. So presentation is pretty standard fare for what you expect from Tamnavulin. It looks like this, as they all do, just different colour labels basically. Cork stopper, glass bottle, clear glass, 40% ABV. It's almost certainly chill filtered because you can basically see the labels through that. It's an incredibly clear whiskey. As for caramel colouring, Well, what do you think? It is finished in a red wine cask, so it's going to pick up a fair amount of colour from that. But it also looks a little bit day-glow orange, doesn't it? If you have a look at the label, it doesn't mention anywhere whether this is caramel coloured or chill filtered until, as per the Tamnavulin double cask, also doesn't say on the front, back or sides of the box until you look at the bottom of the carton and it's on there. Not in English. So yeah, it would seem that they know that they're doing something to be ashamed of and they don't want us to know. But again, this is very cheap, affordable, accessible whiskey. So we don't necessarily expect good presentations. So let's get some in the glass, see what's going on. You've already seen that colour, haven't you? It kind of looks like what you would expect, or what we've been conditioned to expect from a red wine cask finished whiskey. So on the nose, unsurprisingly, a strong note of sweet and juicy red grape. There's also immediately quite an unpleasant and slightly immature, musty cardboard note. A little bit of a fatty oiliness on the nose as well, an unpleasant oiliness. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a grappa grape must note. Quite fudgy on the nose. You kind of get an impression that this is a large vatting of low ABV whiskey, which obviously it probably is. Perhaps a little bit of a yeastiness on the nose as well as some notes of milk chocolate. And rather an indistinct sweetness. But along with that sweetness and kind of merging into those fatty, oily notes, I'm getting quite a unpleasant, bitter chalkiness with this one. To be fair, if you give it time in the glass, give it some time, maybe put a cover on it, put some heat into it with your hands, give it a swirl. I know people don't like that, but it helps with the evaporation off the glass. You wet the glass and you increase that surface area, get those aromas evaporating. If you do give it time, you do start to get some more pleasant notes coming out of this one. And give it enough time, you start to get some stewed pear, fruity, confectionery fruitiness, some plums, maybe a little bit of a sugary applesauce note. Let's see how it tastes. So on the palate again, getting those fruity red grape notes, but I think even more apparent than those, you're getting that bitter chalkiness coming through, which makes this a little bit reminiscent of like chalky pills, paracetamol, and a little bit of an unpleasant plasticine note. Also, and by now, I always come to expect with these 40% whiskies that they quite often smell quite nice, but when you get to the palate, you're very let down. You don't get the same performance on the palate as you do on the nose with these low ABV whiskies, and it's exactly the same with this one. It's coming over really quite watery, and there's quite a few notes of red wine tannins mixed in with the sweet oakiness. Again, I think if you give this enough time in the glass, the aroma improves. I think if you hold this in your mouth for long enough and let it warm up on your tongue and mix with your saliva, so I'm talking maybe like hold it for 10 seconds, 10-15 seconds, it does start to improve on the palate as well. If you hold it on your tongue for long enough, you start to get some pleasant strawberry red fruit sweetness if you hold it long enough. As for the finish on this one, let's have another sip. Let's give it a chance. Short finish, short and watery, it's all over very quickly, leaving a hint of sweet maltiness and some jammy red fruit jam notes and a little hint of almonds. So what do I think of this one? Bearing in mind that if you wait for it to be on offer, which it doesn't go on offer as frequently as the standard double cask, but it does go on offer very regularly, several times a year, down to 20, 22, 23 pounds, something like that. So it's very cheap, but what's the verdict of this cheap, accessible budget whiskey? I think it's decent. but I do think that I would probably stick to the double cask going forwards. I think that with the double cask you get a slightly more balanced, more complex flavour profile, kind of more stereotypically Speyside. And I also think that the double cask probably handles that low ABV a little bit better than this does, as well as being that little bit more complex and juicy. And more than anything else, the double cask doesn't have that slightly chalky medicine quality. I do kind of think that this whiskey kind of has everything in it that I hate about NAS, no age statement whiskey, and red wine cask finished whiskies all in one. You can tell that this is a young whiskey, matured, probably in casks that, shall we say, are not the best. And then given that red wine finish that really obscures rather than complements the base spirit. Like I said, I actually think that the best parts of this whiskey are those base spirit notes that come out if you give it enough time in the glass and on your tongue. It really does highlight the importance of holding a whiskey, giving it time in the glass, and holding it in your mouth and letting the flavours develop. I think we're probably all a little bit spoiled when we stick to our 46% whiskies, or especially our cask strength whiskies. You don't need to do those things as much, especially when it comes to holding the whiskey on your palate and allowing those flavours to develop on your tongue. It's less necessary to do that with a high strength whiskey because you still get a lot of the intensity and complexity. With this one, not so much. You really have to kind of work to get those flavours out of it. It's very much the training wheels of appreciating whiskey. And I think probably the saddest thing of all for this whiskey is knowing that 99% of the people that go out and buy this Tamnavulin red wine cask finish, they're not going to be doing that. They're going to be buying it, pour it, neck it, mix it, put it with ice, whatever, and they're not even going to get the best experience that this whiskey can offer. Final verdict though, I think coming from a malt enthusiast's perspective, this one, there's not a huge amount wrong with it, but I think that especially with a red wine finish, it also doesn't work that well either. Is it worth £20? Maybe, just about. But most importantly, I definitely wouldn't buy this over the Tamnavulin double cask. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this one if you've had it, and Tamnavulin in general. And go and check out Ben's channel, that's Whisky Geek. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.